There's a hidden link between workplace experience and business performance, and it's a conversation that we see overlooked almost on a daily basis, and companies just aren't having the conversation in the right way. It's not about salary, it's not about perks and benefits, and it's not about big headline-grabbing initiatives, all of which are really important, but there's something else that's really being overlooked. And it's small stuff that happens every single day on site. It's small habits and small intricacies of people's daily working lives. Because workplace experiences aren't always defined by big moments. It's shaped by these smaller moments that impact the daily life, probably in ways that you don't even realise. One of the most overlooked areas in the equation that we see from our side is how people access food and drink throughout the day. It's a real productivity leak that we see, where workplaces take for granted what people do on their lunch break, during a 15-minute break on a morning, and before you know it, there's a wider scale habit formed that can get out of control when it's not managed properly. If you go into 90% of workplaces, you see people head off site for coffee, or they might even arrive on the morning with a coffee from a high street retailer or a drive-through, or they're heading off site to get their lunch. They might be going to fast food takeaway, they might be going to a supermarket. So week in, week out, people are making multiple trips off site, long breaks that were meant to be for rest and relaxation and having some downtime with colleagues, giving themselves a chance to catch up with friends and family on a phone call, or just unwind. And these people are getting to the end of their lunch breaks who are heading off site every single day, and they're not feeling like they've actually had a break. They're feeling stressed because, I don't know, they've got stuck in traffic on the way, the shop hadn't got the exact item they wanted, anything like that. But individually, all of this probably doesn't feel like an issue, but collectively, it's a big story, because every time someone leaves sites, you lose more than just time from them. It's a loss of momentum and focus, continuity. You've lost the opportunity for those people to get to know their colleagues better, to build relationships and bond with colleagues. And in many environments, you're adding additional risk for these people going off site. Now you scale that across a company that has 50, 100, 150, 200, however many staff every single day. Even if only half of those people in the business are going off site daily, every other day, once a week, it's a huge drag on performance, because these people, they're not having the time to unwind. And we see a lot of businesses not connecting the dots because they're seeing people eating and drinking, but they're not taking into account the time it's taken out their working day just to go and get access to these foods. The impact doesn't sit neatly in one place. It doesn't show up on the profit line too much, but it is there every single day. And it's not a behaviour problem that we see, it's an environmental problem. When people regularly leave site for basic needs, it's really easy to assume that it's just a habit or it's a personal choice for that member of staff, but actually it's neither in most cases. It's a signal to the employer that the workplace isn't working for that member of staff, and it's not supporting the day-to-day needs of the people in it. Because if accessing food and drink on site is inconvenient, is it limited, is it poor quality, or is it unavailable when needed, people solve their own problems, and that usually involves leaving. They'll leave to go to the local shop, to a takeaway. They will perhaps order off an online takeaway to be delivered to the workplace. However, there's businesses taking a different approach, and they're the businesses that we think are getting it right, and they're the businesses that we like to raise awareness of. They don't want to control behaviour. They're removing the friction that's driving this behaviour. And by removing the friction that drives this behaviour, the staff are more engaged, productivity is heightened, and the overall relationships and culture in the building and in individual workplaces are a lot better than those where the majority of staff are heading off site for their lunch breaks, or even just for that snack, quick 15-minute break. So by removing friction, you're giving people time back, you're giving them the relaxation time back and downtime that they need, and businesses see the benefit in the back end of that through increased productivity, through better attention to detail, less mistakes being made, and a highly engaged workforce. We see so often that coffee, vending, fresh food, snacks, cold drinks, any kind of refreshment service, it just gets treated as a cost. The reality of it is we're not in the business to add significant cost to companies out there. We're in the cost of putting the value for money option in there. And value for money doesn't necessarily mean the most cost effective. Value for money is what gives you and your team the best possible experience that makes their daily work life better, more manageable, and keeps them highly engaged. And it's not about perks and adding cost for the sake of adding cost. It's about us helping the business to understand the link between the business environment, the behaviour of the people on site, and the overall performance of those people. When employees can access what they need quickly and stay on site and maintain momentum during the day, the impact shows up in ways that really, really matter. We often see it leads to higher productivity, much better time utilisation, and more consistent engagement, and a stronger on-site culture through relationship building. And importantly, this is all done without adding additional complexity. It's removing limitations and adding solutions. And we see businesses get this wrong, and it's not from lack of intent, it's just how the decision is framed. For example, if refreshments are treated as a cost to minimise or a box to tick or a good enough solution, the outcome reflects that. You often see underperforming equipment, poor product choices, really low engagement, a general sense that it's just there to tick a box, older equipment, unreliable equipment, and you're still putting the staff in a position of, if those cause problems, they'll find the solution themselves and go off site. And none of this is a limitation of vending or refreshment solutions. It's a reflection of the thinking that goes behind it. So what we're really trying to push is a change in perspective, and where we're working with businesses that really understand it. They're asking a different question. It's not about what's the cheapest way to provide these services. It's how do we properly support our staff on site day in, day out to make their working lives better? And that completely shifts the dynamic of thought, because now it's about operational efficiency, workplace design, and employee well-being, instead of just being a bit of an afterthought and just a nice thing to have. And it matters more than ever nowadays. The expectations of the workforce have changed dramatically. People have choice in where, when, how they work, which means as business owners and business leaders, it's even more important to get the on-site experience right, to attract these people, attract the talent, keep the talent, retain the talent. Because the cost of replacing them, the cost of hiring, recruitment, it is a lot now. So if a simple investment in great coffee and all the facilities you could possibly need for fresh food, snacks, cold drinks, water on site aids that, then it's a really great long-term investment. And this isn't just about cultural leadership. It's about fundamentals. It's about thinking for the staff. Is it easy for them to get what they need? Does the environment support how I work? Or do I have unnecessary friction created in my day? Because if you're putting any of those three things into someone's work life, then everything else has got to work a lot harder to compensate for it. But if you get them right, everything flows and everything moves more easily. So most businesses are already investing in productivity, engagement and retention. But not everyone's looking in the right places of how to benefit and how to have the most impact with it. The biggest gains don't always come from adding something new and shiny. It's just from fixing common, small, day-to-day problems that people are experiencing or limitations that are in place, fixing them and getting them right. And those small incremental improvements have a massive change long-term on people's day-to-day life. Workplace refreshments sit right in this category for us, not as a cost, not as a convenience, but it's a small, consistent driver of performance that's been overlooked for far too long, and we're on a mission to make this at the forefront of businesses' thoughts for the next generation of employees and the long-term success of your business. I'm here to tell you that the future of workplace refreshments isn't about cost, it's all about experience. Workplaces have changed significantly over the last 6 to 10 years, but most people's strategy when it comes to refreshment services, including vending, coffee, snacks, cold drink, fresh food, they just haven't kept up. We've seen a massive shift in how workplaces operate. There's more flexible hours, there's more distributed workforces, and by that I mean spread over multiple facilities or working from home, hybrid. There's a lot more pressure on productivity and retention, especially when it comes to skilled workers, where those skilled workers are in short supply. And employee expectations are so much higher than they used to be. But when it comes to vending services, businesses are trying to use old misconceptions of vending to apply it to new environments that they're trying to implement, and that's a really difficult thing to make work in a modern workplace. There's things like fixed catering hours, underutilising catering contracts, limited access outside of core times. The reality is, if you've got a staff canteen, work no longer fits into a service window, so refreshments can't either, and that's where us as Coin a Drink with vending, unattended retail, coffee solutions come into play. It's got to shift from being a food provision to workplace experience, and that's where the conversation needs to evolve. Providing food and drink isn't just a tick box exercise anymore. It plays a direct role in how people feel at work, how their days go, and how they feel when they actually leave work. It drives productivity, it drives engagement, and it changes that conversation that those people have when they get home to their families of how was your day at work. And I always think that conversation that people have when they get home about how their day has been, that's a big way of how they perceive their employer, and in turn it's how their family perceive you as an employer. And some of the best businesses we work with have figured this out and are great shining examples of this. They're not asking what's the cheapest way, they're asking how do we create an environment where people actually want to be in. As a vending machine operator, our services are really uniquely positioned to make this successful. When it's done properly, vending answers a lot of questions better than most alternatives, including canteens. It matches how people actually work. So a traditional working day was 9 till 5. You see a lot more people now on shift work, 24/7 working patterns, serviced offices where they can get in at any time. And a canteen just doesn't match that requirement anymore. There's not set start and end times to a day's work, whereas vending provides a service at any time of the day, whether it's early morning access, the late shift, night shift availability. It reduces bottlenecks, there's no dependency on staff, and it's just consistent access whenever it's needed. It removes friction from the working day, so every time someone leaves site for food or drink, they're losing time out of their break, their downtime. They're losing momentum, efficiency, and interactions with their colleagues on site. So a well-designed vending provision eliminates that completely. And when you think of that scaled across the whole workforce, the impact is really significant, because you're not just improving the provision for one person, you're improving the provision for everyone. I suppose one of the biggest challenges for our industry is change perception, really, of what vending actually is. I really like to think that vending now is bringing retail to the workplace, and it's not vending as it was in the traditional sense. We're now looking at vending as fresh food, branded products, healthier choices, cashless and app-based payment system. So in other words, we're now mirroring what people would see on the high street, what they would see in a supermarket, and we're placing it directly into the workplace. And that doesn't just have to be through vending, that can be a range of refreshment solutions. It could be micro markets, which are effectively placing an unmanned shop onto someone's workplace to provide all the products we probably would through vending, plus a lot more. Smart fridges, which are a new and really modern way of delivering a fresh food service. Digital advertising to promote any kind of product or offers, promotions, healthier eating initiatives. So bringing vending into the modern language of unattended retail really helps reframe how people perceive vending, and the style and look of equipment that's available now takes it away from being, I hate to say, the machine that never vended your product, into actually the machine where I can get a meal at any time of the day from. And the good thing is, if you're a site that has multiple locations, or you've got multiple warehouses all on the same estate, it's consistent across every site. You know the product, the quality, the service is going to be consistent across the board. And not every site can justify a full catering setup, but every employee expects a consistent availability of products. And that's where vending really does come into its own, because it is scalable, it's really flexible, and it can be consistent from the head office location through to a remote depot. And the service can even be different but consistent in the same building, whether it be a mixture between office provisions versus shop floor or manufacturing floor. We understand that, and we can make it consistent so that the people in every area of one business get the same consistent quality of product and service, but it's just tailored and dressed up in a different way. The biggest issues I see is mindset around what vending actually is. If it's just treated as something of ticking a box or what we do when we can't afford anything else, you end up with old machines, poor, unreliable service, low engagement, and the staff's perception that they're actually probably second best, when in reality you want to give those staff the perception that they're valued, they're well looked after, they have provisions put in place for them that makes them feel valued as an employee. Just treating vending as tick box exercise, it's not really utilising or understanding what the capability actually is, and it's actually a reflection of the approach behind it. So there's a real opportunity that goes beyond refreshments. If our services are put into place in the right way with our advice, it supports productivity, it reinforces wellbeing initiatives, it improves overall on-site experience, and it does strengthen staff retention, which is really important. It's all without operational complexity of traditional catering, and that's a really powerful combination in sectors where margins are tight, labour is stressed, and operational efficiency matters. So the conversation really does need to move on, that vending isn't the cheaper option, fallback solution, or just a good enough tick box choice. It's a modern, scalable way of delivering something every workforce needs: reliable, high quality access to food and drink on their terms, so when they need it and when they need it. And there's businesses out there that understand this and are already seeing the benefits, and we've got countless examples of where this has been implemented really well. And we're helping business leaders now change the perception of vending and showing them that it can be cost effective and it can be a really high, impactful solution to their business.